This week on Industry Relations, Rob and I talk about the RE/MAX settlement, and I try not to gloat too much. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective, with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another phenomenal episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, the Notorious Rob. As always, the fabulous Greg Robertson, everybody. Woo! I almost wanted to call this the gloating edition because I think you're going to engage in a fair amount of it.
What? Gloat? Oh, I'm not that crass, Rob. I'm not that crass.
So clearly, I think we're going to talk about this RE/MAX settlement and how that changes things, if it does. And as you know, I wrote about that. It was like, gotta, but so let's get into it. I know you want to take your victory lap, so go ahead and take it.
Okay, well, we'll
go from there.
I mean, it's not over with yet, but we'll see.
But while you're taking it, you might inform anybody who doesn't know what the actual thing was.
No, I think, there's been a lot in the industry that have, this has been a doomsday scenario, and this case is going to, it's a 10 on it's a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. And it's just going to completely, there's billions of dollars at stake. You've said that these attorneys will bankrupt and sell off the assets to get as much money as they can. Since then, Anywhere has settled.
Yep.
You thought that might be just a way of funding the lawsuit kind of thing.
Yep.
MLS Penn had settled and they rejiggered their kind of piece of the pie to whoever. I mean, it's still obviously heavily bent on the lawyers, but also, and I've been saying, no, this is all going to be settled by the end of, before trial or somewhere closely after that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to be, credit to where credit is due. I mean, I have a lot of conversations with people. You have a lot of conversations with people. So I would give credit here a little bit to, or more than a little bit, to Ed Zorn over at CRMLS. He's the general counsel over there. So he's been one of the people I've been talking to. One of the people, I think he actually used to be a former mediator, right? So, but no, I mean, with this RE/MAX thing, it really does look like this is kind of like a money grab. Like they're just going to go for the least amount of effort for the most amount of money.
Right.
So far in RE/MAX's case, you had said that it's probably going to be for the first people, they're going to get the best deal. The second people, they're going to get the worst deal. But, I think these guys are being pretty pragmatic. They just went to basically look at RE/MAX's balance sheet and says, okay, we'll take half.
Seems that way. Or cash.
Right.
We'll take
or
half
cash.
Yeah.
And half their cash. Correct. So, I think better, we'll see what happens with BHS. We'll see what happens with, I'm really interested about Keller Williams because they're a private company.
Sure.
And I guess both are, but is Berkshire Hathaway, I think they use the branding of Berkshire Hathaway, but they're not part of the Berkshire Hathaway, or are they?
They are. I mean, they're owned by Mid-American Energy or something. So
that's right. Yeah,
subsidiary of a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah. So we'll see how that shakes out, but I'm just, basically counting the days till this is done. Now, and here's why, right? So I wrote this in a comment, but what makes sense to me now is for NAR, at least, for NAR to settle. Number one, it's like, as you've been writing and saying, this is pretty cheap, right? When we're talking about 190 billion or whatever the numbers were, these kind of settlement offers are pretty cheap, right? Mm-hmm. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, and these are big operators Anywhere, part Realogy. If you go all the way back, these guys have been in this real estate franchise space for a lot. They operate, brokerages through their Coldwell Banker brand. These are smart people. And these guys have said, you know what, even with this money gone, but more importantly, the changes that have to be made here, we don't think it's going to be a material impact to our business. Now, I think that's very interesting to think about. These operators in real estate, and we've been talking about like buyer's compensation and everything for a while, they don't think the changes that are coming are going to make a material impact to their business. That's, I think, something that's what they've been saying, right? That's two entities so far that's been saying that. Okay.
I think that's a misinterpretation, but go ahead. Go ahead, finish.
Third thing is that there's no admission of guilt, right? So they're not having to say we did anything wrong or this was an antitrust issue, anything like that, right? So having those three things said, come on. NAR's got a lot to worry about, right? Right. They got their own house that's a little bit in disorder. They need probably the team that's working on all the shit that's working on now that's not related to this needs to be on another thing, right? It's like they got a two-front war going on right now. I think it's just smart for KW and BHHS and NAR to like put this behind them and work towards a path going forward.
Okay. So here's where I'll start. As I wrote in my post, as you and I talk about a lot, I have very strong opinions, weakly held, right? So on when you see new evidence, when new facts come out, you got to change your mind, right? You have to at least re-examine things. So what I wrote is, I always figured this was a money grab, right? What I figured, though, was that these big-time lawyers who are really well-funded would try and go for the most money. The Remax amount, $55 million, like for real, like it makes me think maybe they don't care about the amount as much. Right? Maybe they're just all about get the easy money. Like to me, that's the big change. And I guess we'll see what the home services and Keller Williams, what those settlement amounts are, because if those are tiny as well, if there's like less than 1% of potential damages, then yeah, these guys are just going for easy and quick as opposed to most money, right? So then it is what it is, right? Like I'm not those lawyers, I have no way of knowing, right? Having said that, we still don't know what the terms are, right? So I just want to point that like we don't actually know what the settlement agreement says. Right.
It's not approved either.
What's that?
It's not approved either by the judges.
It's not approved either, but we don't even know what the agreement, what they came to agreement was. They haven't filed it yet, or if they have filed it, it hasn't been made public, right? I'm hearing that we might actually get to see that, like they'll make the filing public, like first week in October, so next week, right? No, the week after next. But you know what I mean, like, so let's just put that out there that we're speculating because we don't know what they've actually agreed to. All right. Having said that, there are still things that we can discuss, we can talk about. The first one is, like I said, I think it's a mistake to read too much into this. Meaning, I don't think either Realogy or Remax in their sort of public release about this, I don't think they said it's not a big deal. This is a non-material change if there are changes to compensation. Right? I think that's a misinterpretation. I think the proper interpretation is as part of the settlement agreement that they had to agree to changes in their internal business practices. And those changes are not material, right? So here's why I say that. And
okay,
I got
so that's splitting some hairs there a little bit.
It's splitting some hair, but it's an important one because I do get asked this and I see enough comments like on social media where your average agent, the average broker are just like, they're ill-informed. So let's actually try and be specific about this. Because I got asked this by like investment analysts too. And I'm like, look, Realogy and Remax have no ability to make any sort of compromises on compensation rules. This is different than when MLS PIN settled, right? In the NOSLA case, MLS PIN, like they control the compensation rules because they're the MLS. Realogy is not the MLS. Remax is not the MLS. So they can't settle with these lawyers saying, hey, we're no longer going to require compensation. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not your domain. Those aren't your rules, right? That's NAR, right? So when you think about it then, what are these business practices that the brokerages, that the franchisors could agree to, right? And I think there are only two that I can think of, right? Maybe there's a third. It depends on, I don't know what their franchise rules say. The two I think are, one is they're probably going to no longer require that their franchisees or agents be realtors.
Yeah, I think that was actually in the Inman article. They mentioned something about that.
It's not
in the Remax one.
It was not public in anything. I have to speculate because we don't know. And I speculated because I'm like, look, if you read through the complaint, if you read through like the previous motions, right? The reason why Remax, Realogy, Home Services, and Keller Williams are defendants at all is that they're part of this scheme, right? That's the whole idea, right? There's a scheme to drive commissions high, and their part in that scheme is requiring their agents be realtors, right? Which then means that their agents and their brokers are not part of that whole, buyer broker rule, which we know is not a single rule. It's like this web of rules, right?
Right.
Excuse me. So I think that's the critical change. There's probably a change that says something about we're going to change our training materials, right? Because Keller Williams's training materials was a big part. It was part of the evidence that the plaintiff's lawyers brought up. Remax too, this whole like, hey, Mr. Owner, I'm only charging 2%, but if you don't pay the other guy, they're not going to show your house, right? So they're probably going to change the training materials.
Yeah, I think that's obvious.
Right. So those two are not material, right, to those companies, right? But the important part is that neither company is agreeing to anything to do with compensation because they don't control those rules. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Now, we'll know more when the settlement agreement does get revealed. But I think that's the first thing. The second thing, of course, is say they're just going for the easy money, right? Because that's where the speculation comes in, I think. And I suppose we're going to record another one of these once we have more details. We might do another one when the court finally rules. Even with this new information, I still think it's going to be too hard for NAR to settle. I still don't see NAR settling, right? And again, I could be I could be wrong. I was obviously wrong about the Remax thing, right? And I think,
but I mean, imagine that. Imagine the attorneys for these other four organizations have vetted, looked at all the evidence, looked at everything they could, and granted, I mean, maybe the stakes are a little bit bigger for NAR, right? Because they actually control these rules in a sense. But if they roll the dice and they go to trial and they lose, everybody's going to be like, what the fuck? Right? I mean, all these other companies settled. They looked at all the evidence. What made you so special that you didn't think that mattered to you, right? It's a real big risk, I think.
Of course it is. What I'm saying is I don't think NAR could settle this. And this is a part that I need to really understand. It's too bad we're not going to get the lawyers on this podcast to explain it to us, right? But that reference in the Remax settlement about similar nationwide lawsuits, you know that language? Like this resolves the issues in these lawsuits and similar. And I'm like, what's similar? Right? Because again, I've been talking like you can't settle claims of people you don't represent.
Yeah, somehow it's got to be expanded, and I don't know the machinations of the legal way of kind of doing that, right?
Correct. So my understanding is there are only two ways, really. One is the plaintiffs have to then say, hey, you know what? We're going to expand the class of plaintiffs. Right. So now we're going to sue everybody on behalf of all home sellers through all 50 states. You know what I mean? Like the entire country. Or I guess there's a way of doing that as a quote settlement class. So the idea being like, okay, right now our class is 40% of the country, but we're going to create this notion of a settlement class that covers the whole country for the purpose of settlement, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a Supreme Court case on that says you can't, like there are all these various rules you have to follow in order to do that. And I don't know if that's going to be the case in this. And this is where I'm not a litigator. I don't do class action lawsuits,
I just don't think. I think I agree with you a little bit. I don't know if it's up if NAR would do this unless they knew they're going to squat this bug, right?
Correct.
And it's not going to come back
just,
again.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't think NAR can settle this for 40% of the country. And then what about the other 60%?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why,
Again, it would be great to have a class action attorney or somebody we could talk to that would. I have to assume there's some legal machinization that can do that. But I mean, and you're saying there's some steps to be followed, but they want to make sure their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed on all that stuff, right? For sure.
Correct. And so part of this could be that Remax and Realogy, when they settle, they're saying, okay, fine, we can settle at least 40%. Right. If the other 60%, we'll deal with it then. You know, I mean, that's possible. So, which is why they're like, look, we can pay you half of our cash balance, right? Because we need the other half for the other shoe to drop.
So let me ask you this: for NAR, and again, you know, you're the attorney, but if Anywhere settles, Remax settles, and Better Homes and Gardens settle, or not Better Homes and Gardens, but BHSS settles, and then KW settles. I mean, that's a big swath of NAR's membership. Mm-hmm. In that case, can NAR, argue that, well, you've already settled with all these guys. That represents 20% of my membership. So why am I going to double pay?
Yeah.
Right.
That's possible.
So in a sense, by going last, it's like, well, we're not talking about 1.6 million realtors now, right? We're talking about 1.2 or 1 or whatever it is, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's possible. The issue there, though, is the co-conspirators to date in both include every MLS, right? Include the local realtor associations.
Well, I get that, but I mean, I guess I'm suspending disbelief and saying maybe there will be a legal mechanization to kind of like, what did you say, expand the class and then have everybody covered, right? Yeah.
So if you expand the plaintiffs class and then NAR could settle with that expanded national plaintiffs class on behalf of all realtors, like that would be the mechanism, right? And I thought, you could. It's just, it's going to be expensive, but maybe not. And that's the change, right? For me, I was like, okay, look, if I'm these lawyers, like I have a lottery ticket, I've got a lottery ticket that says, $400 billion. How much of that am I willing to, to throw away? Right. Because I know I'm not going to get $400 billion, right? Like I know that. Okay. Well, so how many pennies on the dollar? Based on the Realogy and Remax, the answer seems to be like less than 1%. Like less than, right? And if that's the case, then I suppose, the settlement would be 3 billion, 4 billion, right? That like the industry can cope with that. Right?
Yeah, I think it's probably gonna be closer to like all in 2 billion, 3
That's
billion.
what Ed Zorn's been saying for a long time. Who knows? I mean, like I said, for me, I always thought these lawyers would want the most money. Right.
Yeah, and I guess they do, but they want the effort though. They don't want to go through the effort of receivership or shutting down and selling the assets and that.
But dude, even if it's not, what's shocking about it is with the Remax settlement, right? And this is what shocked me. I'm like, I got you over a barrel, Remax, right? Nothing stops me from saying, you know what, it's going to be $150 million over 3 years. But they didn't go for that, right? Because Remax is like, you don't have to take that offer. You don't have to settle, Remax, but we'll see you at trial.
And this guy, the attorney spokesman for the plaintiffs, is like very like, like he's just saying it's time for NAR. He's really pushing like everybody. He's hard selling this fucking settlement. Like settle now. It's pretty obvious. And that doesn't sound like a guy who's want to extract as much as money. He wants to get this. It's it feels like. It feels like that it's the end of the quarter.
Yep.
And I haven't made my quota yet, and I'm just freaking. And hey, been there, done that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's a big sale. I can.
It's to get this sense of urgency, to close these things, right? It really does feel like that.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. I mean, like I said, I guess that's where my assumption, if you will, was off. I figured, these guys are well funded, right? So this isn't a matter of we have to settle or we can't pursue this anymore. You just reached a settlement with Realogy for $83 million. That's plenty of money. You keep this going forever. Under that, like, wouldn't the logical business thing to be, okay, cool, let's extract the most money we can? And I'm like, apparently not. Right?
Yeah.
Apparently, no. Forget extract the most. Let's just get the fastest. Right? It's a lot like realtors, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the listing agents, right? It's like, hey, do we try and get the most money for my client, or do we just take the offer in front of them because it's good enough and get the fastest?
You know what? I'll throw in 0.5%. Let's just get this done. Like, and they have no idea what that really means. It means nothing for the realtor,
right?
But yeah.
And this was anyway. So that's the piece where I was just like, maybe I was wrong, right? Yeah. Maybe I was wrong. So that said, there are a couple of things that I think we should also, since we're all speculating, right? Like, let's make a couple of things clear. Number one, even if you settle with these two law firms, right? And even if there's an expansion of the class, the Department of Justice is not party to any of these settlements. So you're not out of the woods. Right.
But I mean, this would be, come on, if this gets settled, this is going to be significant, right? I mean, this has been the bane of, what do you mean why? This is all we've been fucking talking about. Anybody's been talking about for a long time now, is this specter of this, over everybody's heads, and the MLSs that are involved, and the brands and everything else. I mean, this is going to be a huge, and let's say that out of this, I mean, as you said, we haven't seen the settlements. We don't know. Maybe they're going to be more related to training materials and la-da-da. But this is already affecting the industry, right? It started with Northwest MLS. Well, it started with, really, if you think back, like with Redfin displaying the buyer's compensation percentage, right? And then other MLSs and portals taking on. Then Northwest MLS with their new agreements, and their new of that type of stuff. Bright, I think, basically Bright MLS breaking the barrier of realtor associated MLS is saying, no, we're gonna make it zero.
Right.
And then, what I was, somebody had sent me some stuff over that, like, NAR was like, okay, no.
Yeah. That's fine.
No offers. Yeah, that's an offer. Offering nothing is an offer.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just really kind of revising, history, right?
Correct. The hypocrisy is like, oh no, that's always been the case.
Yeah, it's always been the case. Yeah.
2 years ago, there was a letter like, you're not allowed to do that.
I mean, I don't know. I read that. I was like, is this sarcasm? I mean, I don't know what the hell it is. Right. But hey, Katie, right? So that's fine with her. So, I mean, there has been changes, and there is going to be, I think, more changes because of this. And maybe that gets us out of the woods. And maybe a more conservative administration comes in and that kind of quells it about. But I mean, I think if you settle these lawsuits and we continue down to make these kind of different changes, and already NAR had done all the things that they promised to do in the letter that DOJ ripped up, it's going to be pretty egregious for the Department of Justice. I mean, they can do whatever they want. You're right. FTC, they can do whatever they want. But, this could buy us another 10, 15 years if it's done correctly of getting out of this hole we've been in, this specter that we've been under.
Sure. Anything could happen. All I want to point out was, people are like, oh, if we settlement, it's over. Not really, because like I said, the Department of Justice is not party to these settlements.
Yeah. I'm going to take and you're right, but I'm going to say an optimistic thing is, like, I think it's like, where we're way in a better, way better situation than we were with them being out there.
Do you think so? So let's
explain why I think so.
No. Let's talk about one aspect of it. So let's just assume the super optimistic scenario comes to be, right? So for the sake of discussion, do you think that the MLS PIN settlement, right? The North says a 0% offer, like, that's totally fine. Do you think that's where we end up in an optimistic scenario?
Oh, where offer of compensation goes to zero?
Right.
Absolutely.
But it's optional and negotiable, because that was the key thing with MLS PIN, right? And I wrote about it. It's like, wow, MLS PIN got away with murder, basically.
Well, I think that's where you want to go optional and negotiable.
Right. So
right?
that would be the optimistic outcome, right?
Well, that would
instead of you're not allowed.
You're right. Yes,
you're not allowed.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just taking like the optimistic.
No. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So let's say somehow NAR, whatever, there's this expansion of classes, blah blah blah, $2 billion. We're gonna make compensation optional and negotiable, just like MLS PIN, just like Northwest MLS. Okay, let's just have that be the outcome, right? The Department of Justice is out of it. FTC hasn't acted, so you know what? That's resolved as well. Okay, so let's talk about this new future. I've taken the position that actually that's worse than today for just about everybody involved, and I want to kind of get your take on that piece, right? So again, we're assuming an MLS PIN type. It's optional. It's negotiable, right? And then the seller is going to be paying the buyer's agent as part of the purchase agreement, right? That whole thing. Okay. The reason why I think that actually ends up worse is I think what that does then is it increases the amount of steering that happens. It actually encourages steering, and it actually ends up in creating a whole bunch of like private networks and what I call cool kids clubs. Right. And I've had people tell me, no, that's not going to happen. That's not. But they're like, okay, maybe. So I want your take on this. So
go ahead.
So I'm going to explain the mechanics first, so you could tell me where, if you see it, if you don't see it. Because the mechanics under that optional thing that my mind immediately went to is, as the listing agent then, it is to my advantage to go to my seller and say, we're going to offer 0. Like, we are never going to offer compensation. Okay, because it does two things. Number one, it makes my services cheaper, right? In other words, like, hey, the guy from Coldwell Banker is going to charge you 6%. I'm only charging you 3%, right? But then I go to all my friends. I go to my office. I go to my company. Say, hey, I know it says 0 in the MLS, but you know what? Bring me a buyer. Don't worry, I'll hook you up. I'll convince my seller to pay you. Because I think that
okay, right? All right.
I think that's like just human nature, right? I think that's how it's going to play out, right? Which then leads to even more steering, because buyer agents will be like, okay, it says 0. What are you really going to offer me, right? Oh, you're only going to offer 2%? Screw that. I'm telling my buyer to go somewhere else, right? And I'm like, this optional and negotiable, the negotiable part especially, makes it where like you're essentially telling buyer agents to steer your clients away if you're not getting the type of negotiated compensation you want. Right. Plus, like I said, it creates this real incentive to create private networks, brokerages, doing alliance with one another. Like, so, Coldwell Banker, but hey, Keller Williams agent, sure, we'll pay you. Actually, a better example, because we know that Keller Williams and EXP are in a war with each other, right? So Keller Williams be like, hey, you know what? If it's Realogy, if it's Remax, no problem. Make sure you negotiate compensation for those agents. EXP agent, hell to the no. We're never going to allow EXP agent to get paid by one of our listings, one of our sellers. Right? It's human nature, man. Like, I feel like that's going to happen. Reaction, please. What do you think?
Right. So we talked about this before. Even like in the case of Northwest MLS or other ones, when you put in there in the listing agreement, you have the seller's agent has to tell the seller, okay, you have to fill out this. What do you want to offer for compensation?
Right.
That to me is like, it's as far as the steering thing is, it's like, what does the seller say? Or the seller's agent say? It's like, if they say, well, we got to, if you don't offer anything, other agents, a lot of people aren't going to show your house. And that's that's a bad vibe in a way, right?
That's what's been going on for 50 years.
Right. So I agree. And how do you put them all the time? How do you put this all the time? It's these second order consequences, right? So I think like anything else, we all think that, this is going to solve things, but this is just like any other solution that would come up. It's going to have other problems, right? I don't think anybody's ever going to, say that this, or even in other situations, every solution always brings up other things we didn't think about. And the industry is going to have to deal with that, right?
I'm saying this particular MLS pin outcome, this optional and negotiable, actually makes things worse.
Yeah,
it actually makes things worse.
Yeah, I just think that just like in Northwest MLS, they're going to make these kind of changes and everything, but it's not going to be the inertia around how things are done is so
strong. Absolutely, inertia is strong, and
it's so strong that it's not going to make that material of a difference,
dude,
at all.
My point is, I think the reason why Northwest MLS we haven't seen this huge change is because inertia is so strong.
Yeah.
But the thing about inertia is that only strong until somebody shows, oh shit, right? You make more money. I'll give you the example for this. Coming soon, back in 2016, 2017 timeframe, right? Like coming soon was always a thing, if you remember, right? Because, you did have all these like celebrities and, certain individuals like, hey, I really don't want to be public. Right. I have some real reasons why I don't want anybody knowing that I'm selling my house. Right. So keep it private, keep it like do a coming soon, whatever. Right. And then let's see what kind of thing we get. And if we get an offer that we're good enough, then we're just going to sell. Because again, unique situation. Right. And then, so that the inertia though was like, yeah, I got a listing. Of course, I'm going to list it. I got a listing. Of course, put in the MLS. Right. Until certain agents, certain brokerages figured out, you know what? I actually make more money if I do this like exclusive inventory coming soon strategy. And then it went like wildfire, right? And then MLS like, oh crap, 40% of our listings have 0 days on market because they're all being sold before they hit the MLS. Hey, NAR, you know what we need? We need a clear cooperation policy. Like that's how this happened. I'm saying fine. So just look at human nature. You've just said, we're going to do optional and negotiable. Inertia right now be like, okay, cool. Hey, seller, you need to offer 2.5%. You need to offer 2.5%. I'm just saying human nature, business strategy dictates you go, actually, seller, I'm way cheaper. We're not going to offer anything because we don't have to. The rules have changed. But for the right type of buyer, we may have to negotiate that as part of the agreement. But don't you worry, Mr. Homeowner, I got you covered. Right, I will negotiate to make sure we're getting the best possible deal. And then I go to all my friends like, hey, buddy, bring me a buyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But Redfin agent, screw them. You get, hey, have your own client pay you.
I don't know. I mean,
have your own client pay you. We know this is going to happen.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, again, I can't see how, and this will be really shady if I'm selling my house and like, and I'm saying, well, we got any offers? Well, yeah, I'm just not taking them. Well, what are the offers? Well, one's from a Redfin agent. I'm not taking any offers from Redfin agents. They're going to go, what?
Dude, come on.
So they're going to hide the fact where their offers are coming from.
No one's going to say that.
What are they going to say?
They're going to say, oh, here's some offers. Because, as a listing agent, of course, you're going to present the offers.
But I mean, if there's an offer higher from Redfin than another agent, they're going to take that offer.
Absolutely. Take the offer.
So what are you saying that they're not going to take an offer from a brokerage they don't like?
And Redfin, cool. Make sure your buyer pays you. We're not paying you. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, what? I need to negotiate compensation. Then, hey, listen, this is... Yeah, if you still end up with the best possible offer and you negotiate your compensation, I suppose it'll happen. I'm just saying, the blanket message is 0%. In the MLS, it says 0, right? Get your buyer to pay you.
Yeah, I think, privately, again, it's gonna take a long time for that inertia to die down enough where you get a tipping point where that kind of happens. I mean,
you might be right. You may absolutely be right. Here's how I'm saying I don't think it takes that long, right? Because the industry is dominated at this point by very large, very strong agent teams, right? So in any given market, you probably the top 10% of agents probably do 80% of the transactions.
But you got to remember, these teams don't operate in one side. No, in
I
order for a
know.
marketplace to work, is that
I know.
they know that in another situation they're going to have a buyer.
I know.
Right?
That's my point, Greg. My point is all these agents know each other. The top 5-10% in any given market, they all know each other, right? How difficult is it for them to go, hey, listen, you're competent, we're gonna be buddies. Right? Your people bring a buyer, I'm gonna convince my seller to pay you. My people bring you a buyer, you're gonna convince your seller to pay me. Anybody who's not in our elite network, you're on your own. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm a little bit more. I'm not that cynical.
Yeah, I'm just saying that doesn't take that long, because it isn't like you have to go convince 10,000 agents in your marketplace to do this, because the elite agents are concentrated at the top, right? And they all know each other, man. They all know each other. And a lot of them like each other because they're like, hey, you're competent. You're going to take care of your side. So you know what? We're cool. Some of them hate each other. So it might be like, whatever, right? Like, we're never working together, like you on your own. Like, it's just going to be a mess is what I'm getting at, right? And I don't know that we talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely what you call a second order consequence. I mean, I think there's going to be even more things we didn't think about of what this actually means that we're going to be discussing.
Sure.
Listen, we're never going to have nothing shit not to talk about here.
Let's actually talk about another second order consequence, because this has come up. Let's just say, because I'm pretty sure that it's going to be in the settlement agreements for Remax and Realogy, that what they agreed to was we no longer require agents to be realtors.
No, yeah, like we talked about last podcast, right? So what that means for associations and everybody, yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think you're right. I mean,
but is inertia strong there as well, where people just going to join realtor associations?
I think in the Thompson states, right? It's a more of a factor, as they called it, right? Thompson, right?
Yeah, that's right. Thompson states and plus California.
Right. And then on the other ones, less of one, because there still has to be some unraveling to be done. Right. So I think we look at California, we look at other ones and see if that's an actual play that happens. Right. But we'll see what happens.
I think in a way that could be the more significant. Right. Because you don't have
to have all these fees if you join my brokerage. Right.
Yeah. And the thing is that all of the law cases where the association has triumphed, they've won. So outside the Thompson states, that's true. Legally, in those states, you can require realtor membership in order to get the MLS.
It's a member benefit.
What I'm saying is, if you have the 4 largest companies, right? And let's face it, the way I look at it is, okay, if NAR, some of the other brokers, EXP, Redfin, whatever, the Howard Hanna, the top 50 brokerages in the country, they're all going to have to settle with these lawyers as well, right? Under somebody's umbrella. And if they say, okay, we're going to settle with you, but the terms of settlement is we are no longer going to require our agents to be realtors. All of a sudden, man, you have essentially the majority of your membership now belong to brokers who no longer require realtor membership. Yeah.
And the other thing I think about that makes me think that it's not that big of a deal is that it's just so cheap. These associations and everybody else what is it? $1,300 a year in some places that you're a member of all 3.
Mm-hmm.
I would just pay that just because maybe one day I want to go to a show, or maybe it's just not that material. So, is that going to be the really big linchpin? Hey, you can save $1,300 a year if you, maybe for newbie agents or whatever, but mostly, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll find out. Right? Yeah. We'll find out. Based on what I'm reading off of social media, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Successful agents, absolutely. Who gives a crap? Successful agents. I think the majority of agents are not that successful. I think for them, $100 a month is a big deal. They're driving for Uber. You know what I mean? $100 a month for a realtor associate, to me, that's a pretty big deal. Yeah. So we'll see what ends up happening.
So can I make a plug real quick before we wrap?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So every year I've been invited back actually to CMLS to do my industry update. Mm-hmm. I've got my joke book here. I've been writing some jokes, but I will tell you, I get my best material from everybody else out there. A lot of times, half of it's written on site, but if anybody's got anything, hey, gregrobertson@gmail.com, throw it over my way. I mean, there's so much fodder out there for this year. And I'm feeling a little bit of pressure because I don't work for anybody anymore. So a lot of people think the gloves are off from this. So we'll see what happens. But I don't think it's going to be any more or less.
I'm expecting great things. You know, I need to find somebody who will record the update.
Somebody always does in the audience. So we'll get that out there.
Now that you're independent and free, I'm expecting some,
some bombs,
some bombs.
We'll see what happens.
Would you rap it this year? Have you thought about doing that?
I only had the one rap performance. I think I just dropped the mic after that. So
that's true. You could sing it. You are a great singer. Right on, like a Richmond, north of Richmond style guitar. And just sing
a little ditty. I'll come up with a little ditty.
All right. Well, that's like a couple weeks, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's coming up. God, yeah, really quick.
Yeah. Well, enjoy that. I know Sonny will see you there, so say hello. Other than that, let's wrap up. I mean, I think it's not much of gloating, but yeah, I had to revise my opinion based on the new facts. We'll see. I mean, we'll revisit this, I'm sure, when we have the actual details.
I'm going to be unbearable if this all goes the way I think it's going to go. It's just going to be
Yeah. I love how you got it. It sucks that I'm right all the time. No, it's not. You're just a liar. You love me.
Yeah. I wrote that in your comment. Like, I hate it when I'm right all the time. You're like, no, you don't. All right, man.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Listen, content is everything. Two Brothers Creative makes it look easy. Right now, business owners really only have two options. The first option is hire a big firm. Now, this big firm's going to come in, make you think that they invented all the algorithms, and start charging you thousands of dollars every month. You don't want to do that. Second option is to do it yourself. Well, that means you got to learn SEO, SEM, copywriting, marketing techniques on the web. You should be really focusing on your own product. But now there's a third option. It's called Content in a Box. Give Two Brothers Creative 30 minutes a week and they'll handle everything. Plus, they'll show you how to bring it in-house later on. They'll rebuild your marketing foundation and give you tools and techniques and a new marketing playbook that'll actually produce real results and help you grow your business. Two Brothers Creative will give you the confidence and know-how to tell the SEOs and SEMs and all those other acronyms to get fucked. You're in control now. Get started today at thecontentbox.com.